crimers. This is the case of Paul Bermudo. We're going up north to talk about this one. He's from Canada. He grew up in kind of a broken home. His dad, Kenneth, well, he sexually assaulted his own daughter, and he was jailed for child molestation. Yeah, gross. And because of all of this, his mom moved down to the basement and lived her life there. They lived in Scarborough, which is in eastern Toronto, Canada. In 1987, he would meet Karla Homolka, who's currently giving me the stink eye. Girl, don't give me that look. You made your own gosh darn life choices, young lady. You blame yourself. Around this same time, good old Paul here, you creep, he began a string of sexual assaults. Not just one or two. Between 1987 and 1990, he committed at least 13 sexual assaults and attempted 6 more. In 1990, this couple would marry. Look at them. This is fresh off of their first murder. You see, Paul Bermudo had a little obsession with Karla's younger sister, Tammy Homolka. Karla wasn't a fan of that obsession. So one night, Karla, well, she fed Tammy some spaghetti. It was laced with Valium. And then Karla watched as Paul sexually assaulted her sister. 6 months before their wedding in 1991, they drugged her again, and then they videotaped themselves sexually assaulting Tammy again. Tammy then threw up and then choked on her own vomit. They then hid the evidence, dressed her, put her upstairs in her bedroom, and called 911. Her death was then ruled an accident. God damn it, the dogs are playing in the background. Sorry about all the noise. June 15th, 1991. The psychopath couple ran into 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey. Paul would tell her, hey, I want to break into a neighbor's house. Can you help? And she was like, yeah, sure, why not? This is when he then kidnapped her. While she was tied up, the killer couple would then record themselves again sexually assaulting this girl as well. At one point, Bermudo said to her, the next 2 hours are going to determine what I do to you. Right now, you're scoring perfect. When her blindfold slipped, they worried that she could identify them. Bermudo would claim that she was then poisoned by Homolka with halcyon, but dear wife would say no, Paul strangled her to death. They then dismembered her and dumped her remains with cement blocks in Lake Gibson. In 1992, they came across 15-year-old Kristen French. It was a random choice. They kidnapped her, they did their old videotape thing again with her, and then beat her over the head with a mallet and strangled her with a noose. She was then thrown in a ditch. Through evidence, the couple would be arrested. Paul Bermudo was sentenced to life in prison. Karla got 12 years, and she was released in 2005.
The Ken and Barbie killers, also known as Paul Bermudo and Karla Homolka, were a notorious Canadian couple who committed a series of heinous crimes in the late 1980s and early 1990s. Paul Bermudo and Karla Homolka, his wife, engaged in a spree of sexual assaults and murders in the province of Ontario. Among the victims was Homolka's younger sister, Tammy Homolka. The couple's methods involved luring young women, drugging them, and subjecting them to sadistic acts of sexual violence before ultimately killing them. Bermudo and Homolka often videotaped their brutal acts. The evidence would later be used against them in court. However, it was Homolka's cooperation with the authorities that exposed the full extent of their crimes. In 1995, Bermudo was convicted of 2 counts of first-degree murder and multiple sexual assaults, while Homolka struck a plea deal, pleading guilty to manslaughter.
Notorious Canadian killer and rapist Paul Bermudo has been denied parole for the 2nd time. For those of you who don't know who this man is, he killed 4 women and raped 13 back in the 80s and 90s, and him and his wife were known as the Ken and Barbie killers. It only took 1 hour of deliberation for the judge to turn down Bermudo's parole, but under current legislation, Bermudo can actually apply for parole every 2 years.
Paul Bermudo's name brings similar reactions from most Canadians. The infamous Scarborough serial killer has been incarcerated in Kingston since 1995, when his indeterminate sentence began for the brutal murders of Leslie Mahaffey and Kristen French. Now, according to multiple sources, Bermudo has left his cell in Millhaven Maximum Security Penitentiary for a medium security facility in Quebec. La Macasa is a short drive from Mont-Tremblant in the Laurentian Mountains. The convicted murderer, rapist, and kidnapper was moved discreetly on Monday. Tim Danson, the lawyer for the Mahaffey and French families, confirmed by phone that they were informed after the move took place.
Yes, he's been transferred from Millhaven to a medium penitentiary in Quebec.
Bernardo was arrested and convicted in 1995 of kidnapping, torturing, and killing 15-year-old Kristen French and 14-year-old Leslie Mahaffey in the early 1990s near St. Catharines, Ontario. He and his now ex-wife Carla Homolka were also convicted of manslaughter after drugging and sexually assaulting Homolka's younger sister, Tammy, in 1991. Danson says both he and the families were very disappointed to hear of the transfer to a medium security prison.
When you are declared a dangerous offender and separately convicted and sentenced to life for double murders, there's a punishment factor here. And part of that punishment factor is that you're subject to the rules and regulations of a maximum penitentiary.
So far, no reason has been given for the move, but La Casa is described by corrections sources as a place where inmates at risk of harm from other inmates are often kept. Corrections Canada provided a statement without specifically naming Bernardo, saying, "While we cannot comment on the specifics of an offender's case, we assure the public that this offender continues to be incarcerated in a secure institution with appropriate security perimeters and controls in place." But whether those perimeters and controls are as stringent as those at Millhaven is something that the families of Bernardo's victims would like to know. Ryan Pettigrew, Global News, Millhaven, Ontario.
This is absolutely horrifying. For those of you that don't know, he's a very famous serial killer in Toronto, Ontario, Canada. From 1987 to 1990, him and his wife Carla Homolka went on a killing spree. One of the victims was actually Carla's own sister. The two were called the Ken and Barbie Killers. Paul would stalk his victims before doing really bad stuff that I can't talk about on here to them. Now, this case was very big and popular here and also very controversial. Basically, the two would videotape everything that they did together. Part of Carla's sentence, she said that if she showed the police the tapes with the victims, that she would basically get a lesser sentence. She also said that he coerced her into doing all this stuff. She is currently free, and apparently she got plastic surgery and looks completely different and changed her name too. But it looks like Paul Bermudo is going to potentially get parole.
I'm known as Paul Bermudo, and my life is a tale of darkness and depravity. Born in Scarborough, Ontario, I grew up in a household filled with dysfunction and abuse. My father was a sexual predator, and my mother, withdrawn and depressed, offered little solace. Despite this, I presented myself as a charming and well-adjusted young man. In my late teens, I began to develop dark fantasies and a desire for control. This led me down a path of violence and terror. Between 1987 and 1990, I became known as the Scarborough Rapist, attacking numerous women in the Toronto area. But my crimes escalated when I met Carla Homolka. Together we committed unspeakable acts, including the murders of 3 young women, one of whom was Carla's own sister, Tammy. Our relationship was a twisted dance of dominance and submission. Carla was my willing accomplice, helping me to drug, assault, and ultimately kill our victims. We recorded our heinous acts on video, a testament to our cruelty. But our reign of terror couldn't last forever. In 1993, we were arrested, and the evidence against us was overwhelming. I was sentenced to life imprisonment, declared a dangerous offender, ensuring I would never be released. Have you ever wondered what drives someone to commit such atrocities? What could have been done to prevent such a descent into darkness?